But thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'd be fab. You've done quite a few lately, haven't you? Kind of coming on to
Yeah.
other people's shows and stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, you must be. I saw your post on Instagram this morning about how your grief story has kind of like become like it's like a presentation. Like you've just like you kind of memorize it. I was like, oh my god, I can resonate with that massively.
Yeah, even just in like casual conversation, if you have to tell somebody, I just think it's like we have kind of a like quick way to get it out.
Yeah, it just kind of rolls off your tongue now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm always the same because like I went on to the Grief Gang. She did like a live podcast, a live Instagram thing a few weeks ago, and it was the first time somebody had kind of asked me my story in forever, because obviously I'm always on the other side of like the interview,
Yeah.
and I kind of froze and I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, my mum died, and I'd kind of forgotten how to kind of get it out in the way that I usually would have done, because you just haven't been asked in so long. It was so strange.
Yeah.
Well, if you wouldn't mind then, going into your story and telling the listeners your grief journey.
Yeah, sure. So my grief journey started when I was 8 years old. When I was 8, my dad was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, which, if you know anything about esophageal cancer, there's not much early screening for it. So by the time he was diagnosed, there was no possible treatment. And it was more just about palliative care and making him comfortable. So he died 3 months later. So that was very rapid and sudden,
Yeah. For such a young girl as well.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. It's something that I've been working through with writing, but I'm not entirely sure what I understood of what was going on. But I do remember asking my mother, is he going to die? And her telling me that he was. So there was, they tried to at the same time be transparent, but also protect me a little bit. And I was kind of away from it somewhat.
Did you have any siblings?
Yes. So I have an older sister. So she was about like 19 or 20 at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she's quite a bit older than me, and something that would really work out for us later.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, so, and then I think it was about 11 months later that my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Couldn't write it, could you?
No, I mean, it seems so unheard of, and that's the interesting thing, is I've only connected with other people who it's happened to on the internet.
Yeah.
In real life, I've never, met anybody, but I know people are out there. But yeah, I mean, she was so dedicated to taking care of him, and also taking care of her 2 children who were such different ages.
Yeah. Require such different levels of like mothering, don't they?
Yes, which is something I only have like recently started to think about. But yeah, she was so, I mean, she was grieving, which is also something that I don't think I totally understood as a kid, but she was now a widow and having
wildly normal
experience, right? And yeah, so I think she just was not focused on whatever was going on with her, because she was so busy taking care of everybody else. And then she was diagnosed, but her battle with it was much longer. So she lived for about 5 years, and I think she went into remission at one point, and then it came back and was just kind of all over at that point. And that was a couple weeks before I turned 15. So that was also pretty shocking for me, because I think, as much as I was familiar with death and I knew that it was possible to lose her like I had lost him, you get so used to living with somebody who's sick that it's sort of, you kind of don't let yourself go ahead to another possibility. You just live in that.
I think people kind of have the presumption that because you've been told that your parent has cancer, you kind of, during that time when they're ill, you process the idea of them dying, or if they're diagnosed terminal, you process the fact they're going to die. But that's not the case. That's never the case, because why would you want to sit there when the person's still alive and in your head be like, yeah, they're going to die at some point? Like, nobody wants to do that, so you just don't.
Right. No, and I had already had the experience once and still couldn't process that idea. I didn't think that she would, I thought that she would see me graduate from high school. I didn't, and I was just starting high school. So I think I was preoccupied with my own things that I had going on and
Yeah. The
trying to be
pressures.
a normal kid. Yeah. Um, yeah. And then she died about, I think it was like 2 months into my freshman year of high school. Yeah.
I can only imagine like how like completely world rocking that is, like traumatizing. My after my mum died, my dad also got diagnosed with cancer, so I understand how that can, you kind of feel very, why the hell is this happening to me? It can feel like you're being targeted like by the world in such an awful way. I'm grateful so far my dad's recovered and is okay at the moment, but it's always the thing with cancer is that it's like a beast that somehow always finds a way to return. So it's kind of like living on that line of knowing that at some point it will come back, and I know that it will. But I can imagine as a teenager, you must have had a lot of those like angry, resentful feelings towards what's happening to you.
Yeah, I think I felt like this is so unfair, and how can this even be possible? Yeah, you do feel like you're being, attacked by like the universe or something.
Yeah. What did I do wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, but at the same time, you also don't know anything else. That's your only reality. So it can kind of um, leave you with this impression that that's just what life is. You don't have much else to go on. That's your only experience, is having these, and I know that this isn't the case for everybody, but I had these really great relationships with my parents, and my parents also had a really great marriage, a really great relationship. So it was a really happy home. So all I really knew was having this happiness and then having it totally taken away. Yeah. And then also, having peers that couldn't understand was very, very frustrating at the time.
Yeah, no, I can completely imagine. What was it like with your mum during that period? Like, did she talk to you about what you could do if with both of them gone, what life was going to be like for you?
I do not think that we prepared too much for that. I don't remember. I mean, maybe we did. I don't remember. This is another thing. I have a big problem with memory from those years. I think that part of it is just being a kid and you don't remember everything from your childhood, and then part of it is like this sort of protective,
I
like
understand that.
off. I don't recall any like distinct conversations. I know we had a lot of conversations right before she died, because what happened is she must have noticed that she was having symptoms of just decline. And I don't know that she was telling me about them. I remember her telling me something and then saying, I have to go to the doctor and find out what's going on. And she went in to see her oncologist, and they told her, maybe you have like 3 months. She came home from that appointment and she died 1 week after that appointment.
Oh my God.
So when I think about that, like lack of preparing, there were things that we wanted to do, and we were going to have her get the breast cancer gene test, the BRCA test, and she didn't have time to. So I think we were anticipating having a little bit more time with her. I do know that in the last week, just as we watched the rapid decline, I had some conversations with her, but I think that she was probably, really worried about leaving us, but at the same time I think she knew that my sister and I would take care of each other.
I mean, how blessed to have a sister that's a fair bit older than you, that can, I suppose, a lot of pressure for her as well to kind of become that motherly parental figure.
Yeah, I don't think that I had quite that much appreciation for it at the time. I think I was just trying to hang on to any shred of normalcy, and now I'm turning the age that she was. I'm turning 26 this year, which is how old she was when she became my guardian. So sometimes I step back and picture, like, what if?
Yeah. Wow. Can you imagine?
I'm going to raise a 15-year-old now. Yeah, I don't think I totally appreciated that at the time, but I'm appreciating it more and more all the time now.
Yeah, I mean, that's lovely though, the fact that you can get older and yeah, I'm sure, I bet you tell her all the time now, or at least, I bet she knows, how appreciative you are, because yeah, I had a guy onto the podcast a few months ago who also lost both of his parents by the age of 15. And yeah, and he became like a ward of the state. He was 15 years old, and I think losing a parent is one thing, and having nobody to fill that role even slightly must be just so like scary.
Yeah,
But
I can imagine that.
yeah, so I mean, honestly, he's a great guy. Like, hats off to him, he's amazing. But did your sister then, was she living with you at the time, or did you then have to move in? And
She had moved back home. She had been living elsewhere, and she moved back in a few months before.
yeah,
Died. And yeah, and so that's something that I was really, really grateful for, that I didn't have to move. I didn't have to go to a new school. I could
yeah,
keep some sense of normalcy.
yeah. So what was it like with your relationship with your friends then? Like, I can only imagine being 15, 16 anyway is so hard with friendships and stuff, and like adding, one sick parent or dead parent and adding two into the mix. I can imagine, did they speak to you about it? Did they have those conversations?
From what I remember, see, this was really, I don't think that, I grew up in a very small community, went to a very small school. I had known everybody since I was 5. Um, and I don't think that my peers had been introduced to death very much. I don't think that there had been a ton of tragedies in the community that it made it a thing that kids were used to or had been introduced to yet. So it was, I think it had a big emotional impact on other students.
Yeah.
Something that I remembered hearing was that other kids, I think some friends of mine, went to see the guidance counselor at school when my mother died. I wasn't there because I wasn't in school.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time feeling really almost like defensive of the loss. Like I didn't understand why other people were seeking support for my
Yeah.
Well,
That's my loss. It's
right.
not yours. Yeah.
I see now that I'm older, that was probably scary for them. And thinking about like the high emotions at that age, like 14, 15. But it was hard. Um, I think that, people didn't know how to talk to me about it because adults don't really know how to talk about it. So
Yeah. Preach.
how would a 14-year-old know how to support somebody, especially if it hasn't been their experience? So, I think that my friends, I think probably the best thing that they did that they could have done at the time was they treated me like I was normal, and like my life was normal like theirs, even though it wasn't, and even though I wasn't. And I had a pretty supportive group of friends throughout high school. I didn't turn to them to talk about it, but I think what I got from those friendships was just a sense of normalcy.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, when you have a great loss like that, you kind of, what you want is for people to treat you the same, but at the same time in your head you're kind of a bit like my parents have died, like why, like treat me differently at the same time. Like you don't know what you want, do you? It's so hard.
Yeah, I remember feeling exactly like that, really stuck between the two. And I think it's something I've been able to reconcile a little bit more over time. And maybe part of that is just the being more open about it.
Yeah.
Has helped me to feel less stuck there.
Yeah, because I think it's one of them where, like, if we don't talk about it, like how can we expect our peers and our family to feel comfortable talking about it in front of us? Like, it's difficult.
Yeah.
So who did you end up turning to then? Was it mainly your sister?
Yeah, I think even to this day, she's the only other person who just intimately knows the experience, especially because we lost the same people. Even though at the same time, I recognize that our experiences with losing them are so different, because age plays such a part in the experience of loss. I think because it plays such a big role in how you view the world and what you know and what your responsibilities are at that time in your life. So even though it was quite different, we still lost those same two parents. So I turned to her a lot, and I did go to therapy, which was something that was helpful for me. I know it might not be for everybody,
Yeah.
but that was a helpful outlet for me because I could go to school and get the like sense of normalcy or some semblance of that, but I couldn't get that, the support for the actual grief there.
Yeah. Yeah. Which you definitely need more than anything as you get older, I think, as well. Yeah. So how do you think this whole experience then has kind of shaped your life since then? Because obviously you've had so many huge milestones, like graduating from high school and college, and you're like choosing what career you go into and everything. Like, it just has a huge like dominoes effect, doesn't it, on everything that you do?
It's interesting because it's hard to, I wrote about this recently, that when you start to experience grief in childhood, it's kind of hard to remember life without it. My memories before 8 years old are so few, that this is kind of, to examine how it's impacted my life is kind of challenging, because it sort of feels like, well, it's impacted everything.
Yeah, it's all I've ever known.
From almost the beginning.
Yeah.
I think that it makes me recognize that life is short. I think that anybody who experiences loss starts to recognize that, and recognize that, you know, I'm not invincible. But I think it gives me a certain kind of drive that I might not have otherwise had. It's hard to say, again, because I don't know what life would have been like without losing them. But I think that I don't wait for people to tell me I can do something that I want to do. I sort of just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, it's about not waiting, I guess. And also about celebrating big things and little things. I think that some people are kind of opposed to that, or they think it's bragging to talk about something going well for them. And in my view, it's like, we have to celebrate anything good always, like at any time. Why not? Like, this is, we don't have that much time. And it's not like I feel like I'm racing against time or anything. I just like to stop and appreciate the moment. And
well, I think it's because you know that life can be so difficult, and like when you've experienced that level of like low, and just not kind of feeling anything happy or celebratory, like when anything does happen like that, I think you just feel everything twice as much as you would have done before.
Yes, I definitely think it makes the good stuff better. And it's maybe not so much about feeling like the time that we have here is so short, but maybe just that things can change so quickly. That within, you know, one day to the next, somebody could get a diagnosis, there could be an accident, something could go wrong. And I think that when you've experienced a lot of grief, you live very close to that edge where that seems possible. Whereas maybe other people, it seems so abstract to think about a death happening in their lives, kind of far away, like, oh, that would be terrible.
That doesn't happen.
That doesn't really happen to me, though. And for us, it's so right there.
Yeah.
I think that, how could that not impact how you live?
Yeah, I feel like that's why people that haven't experienced the loss find it so difficult to talk to us about it though as well, because they don't want to think about that. The idea of losing somebody close to them is something that just won't happen, that they just didn't even want to acknowledge the fact that it's happened to other people, because all of it's too painful.
Yeah.
So are you training to be a psychotherapist now, or are you a psychotherapist? Training. You're in training.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, like, do you think that obviously then what's happened to you as a child has kind of put you on that path to choose that career then?
I think so. I mean, I think that there's certain parts of, I've always been an empath, I would say, and I think that I've been that way since I was really, really young, but I don't know that I would have quite the same drive to make that my life's work.
Yeah.
Help people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll work with people struggling with issues outside of grief and loss, but I do think, and I don't think it's, you know, it's not like it's absolutely necessary to have had that experience to be able to help somebody with it in therapy, but I do think it adds a certain type of empathy that maybe you can't learn, you can't train for, you can only have from your experience.
Definitely. And I think with like grief and loss comes with, you know, a lot of people experience all the other mental illnesses that come with that. I know, so many people, myself included, that have struggled with anxiety and depression afterwards, just because everything's just been turned upside down for you. And I think we like kind of certainty in our lives, and we like knowing what's going to happen. And I think those kind of events just make us so hyper aware of how bad things can go, that we've become so scared until we realize that actually life is for the living and for taking. And that's when you kind of become that celebratory person that just is so grateful for everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does just have such a huge impact. It's crazy. Obviously you have your own kind of grief platform as well on Instagram, and you do quite a lot of talks on grief and things like that. Is that something that you recently started, or was it something that you kind of realized that you could do to kind of make a difference to other people in this community, or kind of is it something that's been ongoing for a while?
I would say that I only started the Instagram, I think it was last July maybe. And at the time, I didn't have a big plan for what I wanted to do with it. I didn't set out to necessarily create a platform. It was more of like an online diary. I think I just needed to go somewhere and like unleash some stuff. Because I was getting ready for my wedding, and I was thinking a lot about how grief plays into that. I don't think that I had totally expected it, because I actually had I'd gotten married in 2018, but we had done like City Hall, just like a civil ceremony. It wasn't like a big wedding. And then we were planning to do like the big,
lovely
national ceremony.
The party.
Yeah. And I think, that day that we had gotten, really married was bittersweet. But I think that there's so much pressure that goes into planning a big wedding party, and so many moving parts, and so much of it involved me explaining to the different people involved. And I was very fortunate. I had wedding planners, and they were very helpful. But I had to talk to other people involved, like the officiant or different vendors. And it was just a lot of these awkward explanations of, no, they won't be there. Like, no, like mom, dad won't be doing this.
That's so gross.
You just have to kind of like keep doing that. And so on one hand, feeling renewed grief because I'm really having to confront the fact that they're not going to be there. And then on the other hand, dealing with this awkwardness. And that was also part of what drove me to start talking about it more publicly, is like having had so many awkward encounters where people just don't know what to do with it. Some people take it pretty well, and other people, it's like it totally halts the conversation.
I hate that. That's the worst thing.
It's terrible. Which is so funny, because I actually think that when people have had a lot of experience with grief, their reaction isn't very big. The reaction's really like, it's kind of like more subdued. But when somebody's shocked, it's a whole
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for even bringing it up. I didn't realize all of that.
So that was what got me to start posting about it. But when I started writing about it online, it was more of it was more just a place to unleash. And then over time, once I started connecting with people, I thought, I could actually write from a place of service and see what parts of my experience, rather than maybe putting out every single detail of my experience, what parts might resonate with other people.
I mean, the grief community now is just huge. I mean, you've probably seen it yourself just from being in it since last summer. It's just growing and growing, and it's amazing. I think the things that we would have done, and like that you would have done when we were younger, to have had that kind of community online, and to see that everything that you were feeling was completely normal. I mean, can you imagine having that access at your fingertips? It would have been amazing.
Yeah, it is incredible. I made the account before the wedding, and then I sort of like slowed down. I think I had a lot I needed to just get out there, and then I sort of took a step back and then thought more about what I wanted to do with it. And I felt a drive to start connecting more with people, but I only really started posting pretty consistently back in February. And even since then, I've seen so many people like join in the conversation. It's incredible.
Do you find it quite mentally taxing at times, you know, having that space, there's a kind of pressure on you to create content, basically, just in general, you know. And even if that pressure isn't actually active from like your followers and people in that community, you put it on yourself a lot. I mean, that's something that I struggle with anyway.
Yeah, I think I don't say anything that I don't mean, and I don't share anything to be like, oh, I have to post something.
Yeah.
I For some reason, it was like once I opened this portal of writing about grief, it just started flowing.
Yeah.
But if there's a day that I'm like, I don't have it in me today, I'm a very busy grad student. I'm also just a human being who needs rest. Sometimes I just won't say anything. I think that it's helpful to exercise some boundaries. So just choosing like, okay, this block of time, I'll check DMs or like look at comments and talk to people, because I love that connection. But yeah, it's social media is such a tricky thing because
it's so hard.
It can be so beautiful, these connections and conversations I've had with people that I never would have met otherwise. I'm so grateful for it. At the same time, you can't be, you know, staring at a screen.
Well, yeah, exactly. The thing is that I could sit on like the DPC Instagram account all day. I easily could, and, you know, creating content and getting to know people and replying to messages and stuff. But it's like you say, you have to set yourself boundaries. And I found that for myself, I don't go on my phone past 8 o'clock at night. I just put my phone away and that's it, because I'll just get lost. And then with like replying to messages and stuff that come into my DMs, I'll probably do it 2 or 3 times a week. I've tried to not feel that pressure to reply to people as soon as they message me. I try and like do it every couple of days, and then just do, sometimes I'll be sitting on the sofa and I'll get this sudden like push to be like, right, okay, I'm going to do it now. I feel in a good space to reply to all of these messages, and then I'll do it. But it is hard kind of being the facilitator for those spaces, you know. It's difficult, but it is such a beautiful thing. And I think I'm so blessed to get to know people like you and other people that have, you know, built these spaces on Instagram and on Facebook and stuff, because it's just so nice to see people coming together and, you know, they're all on the same path, like to try and make grief just more accessible and spoken about more.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that it's not, you know, I would hope, I mean, this goes for anything, but I would hope that nobody out there would go, oh, there's enough people talking about it. Like, what's the point of me joining the conversation? It's like, this voices amplify it. So like anyone who, you know, I walk this fine line of talking about the importance of sharing grief, and then also recognizing that it's not going to be helpful for everybody to talk about. I recently had somebody ask me, they were thinking about starting an account and asking, you know, what led me to do that. And I was honest, I didn't start it to just be of service. And I think if you're only doing it to help other people and not because it also feels good for you, you'll just be sort of like pouring from an empty cup. But
definitely,
anyone who wants to, it's like, please join in, because it does, it just becomes more and more normalized.
Yeah, definitely. Have you kind of noticed a difference at all in the way that people from like America talk about their grief and UK people like myself? Is there a difference in the way that people deal with their grief, or even just how open they are about it?
I don't know about in like not online. I don't know if I could compare, because again, I've only connected with people from the UK online, but from the moment I started the Instagram, I realized that most of the Instagram accounts that I was finding on grief are from the UK. Which I'm like, why are we must be behind. US accounts. And they are out there and they're growing, but I did, that really struck me. And I thought it was so funny because I've always said mum, not mom.
Okay, like, really?
It sounds so unnatural to me, and I've always written it MUM since I was a little kid.
Oh, interesting.
And I realized that I'm writing mom, and I'm like, people probably think I'm also from the UK.
Another UK grief account, for goodness sake. It's so true, because that is something that I've noticed. I get quite a few messages from people from the US, and they say like, oh, you know, it's been so refreshing to come across this page because nobody from where I'm from speaks about it, and I can't find anything anywhere, but I've found all these UK pages, and I'm like, no problem.
Yeah, I don't know why that is, but Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, like you said, there are more and more pages from the US popping up, which is, you know, fab. I mean, it's just so cool. I look at my podcast statistics and stuff, and I see that I think nearly the majority of my listeners are from the US, and I'm like, wow. I kind of,
Hmm.
you know, I kind of always thought that it would just, I could, when I started, I could never envisage it even being outside of the UK. So yeah, I think it's amazing that, you know, we can reach people from just like all over the world, and like right now we're like so far away from each other, but you know, we've got so much in common. So it's
Yeah,
amazing.
I know. I love that.
So one of my kind of final questions for you is like, do you think that it's changed your attitude towards your life and the way that you kind of attack it?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I would say that you know, like I was saying about celebrating, I appreciate everything. I appreciate, you know, I'm not saying every day. It's not like I walk
Yeah.
around in like a constant state of gratitude. It's unrealistic. Um, but I think I have more appreciation for things being boring and stagnant. I know, like
Like right
in
now.
routine, some people, it's very frustrating. I understand that. But I think just me knowing that everyone in my life is healthy and everyone's good is is more than enough. And anything else is just awesome. But yeah, I think I just go for the things that anything that lights me up. I just want to go near that and not waste time wondering if it's something that I'm worthy of or that I should do right now or put off. I think that yeah, I think it changes. It's changed my drive.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any kind of exciting plans for your page, or like anything that you kind of hope to achieve from it?
I mean, I guess that I, you know, I am working on a book and I do hope to publish that at some point in time.
Exciting.
It's not something I'm in a rush for because
Mm.
again, I'm also getting ready to graduate next spring from grad
Huge.
school. That's a lot, and I'm starting clinical work, so that's also something else I'm really focused on. But I do
Yeah,
want the book to happen at some point. But I don't want it to be. It's not an ego project for me. It's not something that I, you know, just think I'm so important that everybody needs to hear every detail of my story. But
yeah,
again, that I think that maybe there's a way that I could pull elements of my story out that could be helpful for other people to read. And I know that's something that will not be for everybody, but reading books about other people's experience was something that was helpful for me.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's similar to this podcast, you know, the reason that I kind of created it is because people find comfort in listening to other people's stories.
mhm.
It's just kind of the way that we are.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of not an end point by any means, but that's probably the biggest thing that I hope you know, people who like reading what I'm posting now or who are on my email list and like the excerpts I'm sending would potentially be interested in reading the book.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's really exciting. Looking forward to finding out more after you've kind of gone through this huge, big life, like changes though, you know, working full time and passing your degree and stuff. That's so exciting. Um, my final question is, what advice would you give to somebody else who has perhaps also lost both of their parents similarly to you, and you know they're young, perhaps in their late teens, early 20s?
I don't know that this is a piece of advice, but I would start by saying that it won't always be like this. You won't always feel like this. Um, I can't know what the nuances and details of everybody else's life,
Mm,
but I would like to think that, you know, I would say you will find some happiness again. And I say that from experience of really not thinking that that would be possible for me, um, especially after my mother died, especially just taking in this reality of not having any parents and just raising a lot of existential questions about my life and what it meant and if I would ever be happy again.
yeah,
Um, and, you know, as much as I talk about grief, and it seems like that might be all that my life consists of because it's on the platform is about, you know, I would say your life will be about so much more than grief, and you can still have a happy life even if you give space to that grief still exists for you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. I know it's probably quite early for you, so hopefully this has set you up for a productive day anyway.
Yes. Well, you're so wonderful at this. I mean, I've heard you before, but I feel like I know you, and first time we've ever spoken. So this is really
Oh, well, thank you so much. I mean, that, you know, it's something weird for me. I never thought that I would feel comfortable talking to people that I've never met before, never had conversations with before about something so deep and personal. But I think it's just like, because you understand that kind of feeling straight away, it's just such an easy conversation to have. I never would have expected it.
Yeah, it is like the great connector, I think.
Yeah, and I think I would love if, like, it'd just be a miracle if one day everybody in this grief community could all just like meet somewhere in the world and just I just imagine what it would be like, because I just think there'd be so much happiness and people just, I feel like you just feel like yourself straight away, which is such an amazing feeling.
Yeah, we'll have to do something. We'll have to
imagine, it'd just be amazing. It would be so good, like a virtual party or just something.
Yeah.
I think it would just be absolutely incredible. And yeah, there's power in numbers, isn't there? I think just knowing that none of us are alone with however we're feeling is literally the best thing in the world. So bro, well, thank you so much. I really hope that you have a lovely day, and yeah, I can't wait to kind of find out more about your book and stuff as time goes on. I think that'll be really good. Your writing is absolutely brilliant, so I'm sure it'll benefit a lot of people.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.